Hello, Guru Nation. Welcome to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. I'm here with Andrew Stevens from
How's it going,
downtown
man?
LA. He is about 18 miles away from where I'm sitting, but it's like a whole nother planet, and it's maybe 3 hour drive from where I'm sitting
That's
right now.
that's potentially very accurate, especially if you're leaving after in between the times of like 12 and 5.
Yeah, thank you for
12 and 5,
confirming.
don't
People
get me wrong.
think I'm making this up, but this is facts.
I cannot. It's crazy. You try to go anywhere, even in LA, 3 miles away, it's going to take you 45 minutes.
Yeah, you gotta plan your whole day just for like driving there. But I'm actually going to LA this week on Friday. Um, but anyways, I got Andrew. Some of you may recognize Andrew from when we had our meetup in Orange County in 2019, and Andrew got on a panel with me and Chris talking about patient recruitment and using social media ads to recruit
Okay.
patients. So we're gonna talk a lot more about that because this is 2020. We want to make this very practical for the sites out there,
Mhm.
primarily for the sites. There's gonna be some nuggets for job seekers that I'll throw in there because we're
Yeah.
going to eventually talk about social media anyways. This is part of what we're talking about. But primarily for the sites, for the PIs, the site owners, study coordinators, you're going to learn. You're going to learn why it's important, why you need to do it, the difference between branding and marketing,
Mhm.
and then how to use new media, all the digital media, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff with Andrew. Andrew's an expert from Apollo Research Group, and he will give his contact info. Might as well give it out now, Andrew, first, and then we'll give it out at the end too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, contact info. If you ever want to just contact us directly, one of the easiest ways, I could just spew up my email on here, but it's really, really long just because of our ending apolloresearchgroup.com. You can always just go to apolloresearchgroup.com, send us a contact form that way. My direct phone number, if you guys ever want to talk, is 401-741-2052. But if you do prefer email, you can always send an email to astevens@apolloresearchgroup.com, and that's STEPHENS.
There you go. And we'll have links in the show notes and underneath the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew, first of all, before we get into the stuff, just can you kind of give us a background of who you are and how you
Yeah.
got started in research? I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually, when I was in school back in Boston, I was going originally to become a pharmacist. And after working in a pharmacy for a little bit, I just kind of realized it wasn't really the space that I wanted to fall into. And I ended up taking an elective for clinical research. Long story short, they had just opened up a master's of science for clinical research, and I applied for that program, graduated from college, and was volunteering at different institutions. The first volunteer position I had was at a orthopedic surgery hospital where I was just doing like some nasal swabs for MRSA study. And then after that, I started working at Dana-Farber. I was there for about 2 years as a phase one study coordinator. Shortly after, moved to California, got a job in San Diego where I worked at a CRO for a little bit. And, the more and more I worked at the CRO, I was just kind of trying to figure out where I could be of most value other than obviously doing the work I wanted to that had to be done by myself. But I would always hear, in the meetings, people always talking about how patient recruitment was a troubling thing. And at the time, I had some business partners, or who are my business partners now. They were doing marketing, and they were just doing, marketing at the beginning for fitness companies and, different types of small businesses. And I really saw an opportunity because I would talk to them, and they were saying it was really working with Facebook, Instagram ads. And I kind of saw an opportunity for, this type of social media advertising to be applied to clinical trials as well. So, it took me a couple of years to really build everything out and develop our whole team. But, once we got our first few trials, we started doing it, we really did see value, and so did the sites. And it became a thing where it was like, you really learn over time what works and what doesn't, especially when you're working with, some marketing partners who are always in this every single day. They're in the trenches, they're learning new things, they're listening to podcasts, they're always educating themselves to figure out what are the best things that we can implement for not only the research sites we work with, but just as a whole to the entire program. And it even kind of extends past, generating leads, and that's something we're diving into now. One thing we're trying to dive into now is not only generating leads, but helping our sites get in contact with their leads. So we're building out some new integrations, which I don't even know if I've told you about just yet, but we're really excited about it. We're putting in like a calendar schedule. So traditionally, somebody will just go to our landing page, they'll submit their information, become a lead. But now going forward, we're testing this new thing out where, after doing a lot of research and data analysis, we kind of figured out if after that form you allow somebody to book their own call, it is going to help the sites get in contact with them because, number one, now they just made a commitment. And number two, you can really send them email reminders, text message reminders, so they're not forgetting about the call that they already scheduled with you. So that's something pretty cool we could probably talk about afterwards too.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I interviewed someone from Patient Advertising Guru last week, and he said the recruitment starts, or the retention starts, immediately when the person dials a call on the phone or sends the email, right? Like, what's the auto reply? How many rings does it take? Those retention is already starting. You're already starting now. You're branding for that individual. So you want to make sure that you're outsourcing that to the right people. So now for sites, because recruitment, retention is important, branding is nice, but people have studies now. People have studies like me. We're using Andrew's company for a study. It's too early to tell because we haven't gotten IRB approval yet, but we have studies to fill now. So it's nice to do all this branding stuff, and maybe something works out, maybe something doesn't. But in the long run, it's going to be good for you. But what do you do? What should a site do now? Let's say they have $5,000 budget, okay, and they've exhausted their database for advertising. They have $5,000 budget, okay. So what do they do? Ideally, what would you do, Andrew, if you were working at that site?
Well, I would always encourage research sites to play around with Facebook advertising, Google advertising a little bit. Kind of get your feet wet to understand how the platform works and really how much potential value there is. I think one thing that research sites may not know is that you have the potential to reach millions of people with Facebook ads. And it's very obviously dependent off the study. Like for Facebook and Instagram, you're targeting people based off their behaviors and their interests. So that's determined on, what kind of groups are they interacting with when they're on Facebook? Who do they follow? What are they commenting on? And stuff of that nature. It's not like Google AdWords, which is extremely beneficial for research sites, depending on how many people you can reach each month, which is pretty easy to pull up. You just go to Google Ads and you kind of type in, say if you're doing a depression study like we are going to be doing, right? You can kind of see how many people are searching that each month. Well, with Facebook and Instagram, it's not as easy because you have to target people not necessarily based off those keywords. Like, for example, for depression, you might not be able to find it, but you can play around with it, right? And research sites, in my opinion, always know the most information about what the individuals that they're targeting are looking for, this type of study, or might be interested or searching. A lot of times when we're working with our sites, we always ask them to give us a little insight. But the really cool thing is that it's something that research sites can literally do today. You can go to business.facebook.com and start running an ad today for as little as $5 a day. I'm not going to say that you're going to get results right away, but it's definitely something that you can see that there's value in. And what's really cool is it's differs from like traditional media, right, where you're doing like a newspaper advertisement or say a radio ad, because you're actually able to see the analytics on the back end of how these ads are performing. You're not only able to see like how much your cost per lead is or how much it costs to get somebody to become a referral, but you're also able to see how many people are seeing the advertisement, how many people are clicking on it, how many people are really engaging with this ad. So it really gives you a better idea of, is this worth it, right? And what it is, what I would recommend and what we do for our sites is we always run multiple campaigns, multiple different advertisements. It's not just, you set one up and then you just let it run. It's one thing that you got to set up multiple, see which one works out the best. But once again, what's really, really cool is that anybody can do it. Any research site can do it. And I think that it's something that every research site should try to do by themselves first before even going to a vendor. because it is very possible. Like, we have one doctor in Florida who does a fantastic job, advertising his own stuff. We still help him, but at the same time, he's doing a fantastic job advertising. It's something that, he probably wasn't necessarily the best at initially, but I'm sure over time he's learned tips, like little tricks that have worked. And it's definitely shown based off his results, based off the post engagements, the amount of messages they're getting to their research facility, their general practice. So it's something that's really cool and can be implemented today, especially if you already have advertising material that's been approved by the IRB. You don't have to go to a radio station and see, what time slots are available or when the next time or when's the earliest that I can start advertising. You can literally just go to business.facebook.com today, create a campaign, and start it as low as $5 a day just to test it out to see if it's something that is of substance or of value.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Facebook owns Instagram, so if you go there, you can also run Instagram ads through the same ad you created for Facebook. So I like what you said about Google. People are actively searching for things, right? So that's the difference between Google and YouTube, which is the same thing also.
Of course.
They're actively searching, so how to beat depression. Okay, so they're actually searching. If one of those results, paid or organic, is about research, maybe someone's interested, okay? Facebook's different. People are not on Facebook necessarily to learn. Learning can happen, but it's almost by accident. People don't go there to learn. People go on Facebook to mess around, to message people, to see what people are doing, to kill time. I mean, that's from what I understand and from what I've been seeing, and even how I use Instagram myself. That's what I use it for. I never go on Instagram and learn anything, really. I mean, I might learn things by accident, but I don't go there to learn. What's that?
I said it always depends who you're following, right?
Always, yeah, of course it depends who you're following. But so now those are very different, right? Google versus Facebook.
Yeah.
Which one costs more? Which one costs more per click, right?
It's really hard to say because it's kind of a catch-22 where that people that are looking at your stuff on Google, they're actually searching for that. So like you said, like how to beat eczema or how to beat a certain disease or condition. They're actually looking for a solution to that problem. So, when you're getting that type of lead, it sometimes, and in my opinion, is more favorable, and they might be a more eligible person or more serious person than, say, somebody on Facebook that just clicked on your ad. The beautiful thing about Facebook is that you have access to millions and millions of people, whereas for Google, you still have access to those people, but it really breaks down to how many people are searching this in my area per month. It's not how many people are searching this across the U.S., right? Because unless you're running a U.S.-wide trial, you got to really focus on a 10 to 15-mile, maybe 20-mile radius of your site.
Very good point.
So you might only be able to reach, say, like for an eczema trial, right? In your area, you might only be able to reach 10,000 to 20,000 people on on Google. But you got to really think, how much more serious are these people that are actually searching these terms that we get to choose, right? It's not like we just type in eczema and then if it has the word eczema within the sentence, it doesn't. You make it very specific. You can make it so that people, if they only search the word eczema, they'll see my ad. If they include the word eczema in a sentence, they'll see my ad.
I like that.
That's one really cool thing about Google is that, you have that, I don't know if you would call it sincerity, but that the person searching it is very serious. They're very serious about trying to find help. And that's one really good thing. Whereas for Facebook and Instagram, right, if we're running an ad, especially out here in Los Angeles for it, you're going to have a potential reach of, say, 1 million to 2 million people within a 10 to 20-mile radius of you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all 1 million or 2 million people are looking for help with eczema. Right. It just means that they might be involved with the group, or they might know a friend that has eczema, or their friend might even be interacting with it. That's one of the trickier things about Facebook is it's not as direct, but the patient, or I shouldn't say patient, but the population you have access to is much greater. And just from a sharing and a social aspect, Facebook is great because I might not necessarily hit somebody that has eczema, but they might be looking into eczema because one of their parents or their daughter or their
That's
sibling
right.
or somebody that they care about has eczema, right? And they're trying to figure out what are things that I can do to help them out. And even if it's just joining a couple groups, trying to educate themselves on it, trying to really understand the disease or condition for themselves, they could even just as simply go in and comment or tag a friend in the post, right? And that alone is also very beneficial. So both tools are extremely valuable. It's just it's almost comparing apples to oranges in the sense that one demographic is specifically searching it and the other demographic is, they might be interested in it.
Yeah, and there's always, I mean, it's definitely in everyone's best interest if you learn, or if somebody from your site learns, just start experimenting with these things. Anyone could go to Google Trends
Yeah.
and see what search words are popular at that time. You can
Mhm.
also do keyword analysis, so if you put up depression, you can see related search terms that you never even thought of.
Yeah.
And you can use those trends for Facebook, for your Facebook ads too.
Yeah,
Doesn't
absolutely.
just have to stay on Google just because you found it there, right? So I think it's beneficial for people to run the ads themselves. I ran Google ads myself, Facebook and Instagram. I know how to do those three types of ads for patients. Now, this is a whole nother story. I may know how to do it, but I don't know how to do it as well as a professional like
Mhm.
Andrew, right? I could maybe do it like half as good as you, maybe, right? I'm sure if I studied for 60 hours and like really experimented like for a few months, I could figure it out and maybe be as good as you, but still probably not because you're also doing the same thing. So like while I'm catching up to you, that's like you maybe 6 months ago, right? That's
Yeah.
not you now. Now you're working on integrating other tools into your product. So there's always a value and a premium to pay for professionals, and especially when the farm. It's not even like when you're a site recruiting patients for a study. It's not even really your money.
Exactly.
It's coming from the sponsor, so it's use it or lose it type of money. But let's make this very practical because some people are gonna hear this but not do it. I want people to actually do something. So, business.facebook.com is what you said. Okay.
Yeah.
What should I do? Let's say they have a study for diabetes right now. All right. Like, what do they do?
So the number one thing you have to have before you can even run Facebook ads is a Facebook page. So if your clinic or your research site or your general practice doesn't even have a Facebook page, that's the number one thing you have to get on. And I always recommend it just so, people are always searching stuff, right? And then with Facebook, it's kind of cool because if they're in your area, right, and they type in like dermatology office or diabetes center, you can become that one that pops up first on the list. It just really comes down to how many people on Facebook are interacting with you, how many people on Facebook are following you, but most importantly with Facebook, how many people on Facebook are having a positive experience at your research site. Because one of the interesting things about Facebook, and I want to make it clear for a lot of research sites, is not every single imagery that you send out there might get approved because Facebook is specifically designed as a social platform. So they want to make the user experience enjoyable. So if you're, putting up some picture that might kind of be a little iffy, even if it's just like a skin disease or, Facebook might put it down because they don't want to necessarily display that in front of their audience. But first thing that you need, the number one thing is a Facebook page. From there, you can just go to business.facebook.com and you can simply go into the ad platform and in the top left, there's this green button that says create an ad. And it gives you a whole selection that you can select from, whether it's driving traffic to your website, whether it's driving engagement, people that are going to comment on your page, people that are going to like your page. But one of the biggest things that I noticed that research sites and even just small businesses do incorrect in general is that they're paying for traffic or they're paying for an engagement. What you really should be aiming for is a conversion, right? Whether that conversion is sending somebody to or trying to make somebody send you a message, or whether it's sending somebody to a landing page to convert into a lead. So you always want to optimize for conversions because at the end of the day, that's your primary goal, is converting this person over from somebody that's interested or looking at the ad into a lead for your practice.
Very
But
good. I
And one of
like
the
that.
things is just again, it's just so intuitive, right? Where you can go in once you go and click that create an ad button, you select, you want to optimize for conversions. After that, you can go ahead and select how many mile radius. I believe it's from 10 to 50 on Facebook. You have a 10 to 50 mile radius that you can advertise to on Facebook. And then after that, it gives you an area where you can select the age group, whether it's 18 to 65, or say if you trials 18 through 49, or if you have a trial in Alabama, it's 19 through whatever it is, right? Age of consent. You can really optimize your audience and choose the age group, who you want to see, if you want male and female, just male. On top of that, after that, you go down to the detailed targeting. And in detailed targeting, you can even just start as something as simple as diabetes. And I know from experience, if you type in diabetes, something will pop up. So after that, you can continue typing the word diabetes, selecting everything. But one cool thing that Facebook really does is it has suggestions. It gives you suggestions that are related to diabetes, or that Facebook thinks that is going to attract or resonate with that audience. They understand that if this person's following this group, they might follow this, this, and this, and this. It just becomes one of those games where you don't want to pick things that are too vague or too generalized, because if they are, you might have, say, 1 million or 2 million people within that group, right? But if it's too generalized, you're going to be hitting a lot of people that are saying, for diabetes, it's really specific. I guess for like an example that I could talk about is like ulcerative colitis, right? A suggestion would be like stomach. If you click on stomach, you're going to be advertising to people that might not even be interested in ulcerative colitis, right?
People that are looking to like get rid of belly fat, or looking to get in
Exactly.
shape, especially now
Exactly.
around New Year's, right? Looking
Yeah.
to lose weight. So you're gonna get like random things not really having to do with ulcerative colitis.
Yeah. And then the last step after that, once you select your demographic, your targeting is just simply going to adding the imagery and adding some copy that you'd like to put on, and even the link to your website where, people might be going to, or you can even put call our research center now, or send us a message on Facebook. And after that, it's really the last step. There is a Facebook approval process. They have, once again, their own kind of rules and regulations about what can be approved and what can't be approved.
Hmm.
But really, for anyone even trying to learn, my biggest recommendation, especially in 2020, is if you ever want to learn something, just go to YouTube.
Yeah.
I know it might sound like a little juvenile, but just give it a shot. I promise it's
It's
not.
true, man. I learned how to do Facebook ads from watching a guy on YouTube. He did like a 2-hour video on
Yeah.
how to set up a Facebook campaign, and it works. It's a lot of work, which is why we contacted Andrew, because I don't want to do this for every study
Yeah.
and tweak it in the middle of each week or month, that based on what you're getting versus like who you're trying to weed out. But you can learn a whole bunch of things on Facebook. You can learn, or on YouTube, how to advertise on Facebook. I'm glad you brought up the making the Facebook page first, because
Yeah.
that's very important. Most sites don't actually have one. So making your Facebook page, you are now branding. Okay, branding is sort of like painting the overall picture of who you are, what you guys do. Branding is essentially making yourself like the place to go to for whatever it is that you're doing. So if you're a research site for ulcerative colitis, in your
Hmm.
community or online in the community, people, when they think of ulcerative colitis and clinical research, they should think of you. That's branding. Okay.
Yeah.
Marketing is different. Marketing or advertising is different. Advertising is paying to get eyeballs to look at it, right? So you're kind of paying a little bit for branding, but like you said, you're paying, actually, you should be paying for conversions. All
Exactly.
right. So here's what I've done before, and this is what most sites can do. I think it's pretty easy to do, and it may not be the most efficient way to do it. I'm sure you guys at Apollo know way better techniques for doing this, but it kills two birds, because you're going to do branding, and then you have the opportunity to do somewhat smart advertising. So let me explain. You create that Facebook page. I'm glad you brought that up, because I totally forgot that most sites don't even have that.
It
Create that
happens.
page. Have someone at your site be in charge of creating one piece of content every day, not necessarily about your study, but about that condition. So if it's ulcerative colitis, maybe write an article. Then the next day, maybe interview your PI about it. Then the next day, do a podcast. Then the next day, have infographics about everything you've learned from the previous days. That's 5 pieces of content, okay? You post them all. You see which ones do better. Which you're going to see one of them does much better than the others usually.
Oh yeah.
And then you can boost post, right?
Yeah, that's something extremely easy that sites can do. Is that when you do have that content, you can, even before you even start advertising it, it will show you the engagement, right? You'll see how many people like it, how many people comment on it, how many people share or tag their friends on it. And based off that, there's this little blue button in the corner of that post that says boost post. And from there, you can even just set up a very simple advertising campaign. And I'm glad you brought that up, because honestly, that's something that we don't do very often anymore, just because we obviously understand the back end a little bit more. But
it's not as efficient, but it's better than nothing.
It still works very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually what one of our research sites in Florida is doing. Is the doctor himself, he'll post something and he'll go to boost that post. And he'll just select a simple conversion, whether that's send people to our inbox or have people give us a call, and it works. I believe for them, they were seeing, they got like 31 messages, and the cost per message was like $28, and they were doing a fantastic job, and I know for a fact they got some people out of it, whether it was for their general practice or even for the research site. But then again, it's that thing of just branding, right? It really comes down to what you're trying to do for your practice. And I know that from a branding perspective, it's doing a fantastic job for them. Fantastic job for them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. And then, when you come across a study that you've exhausted your capabilities of your database and the boosts just aren't working, they're not as effective as you need them to be, that's when you bring on a professional. So this is exactly what I did when we brought on Andrew, right? I mean, we called him up. Andrew, hey, we're having problems here. We've got like 18 screen failures in a row, right? No boosted post is going to be able to help you with screen fails. Like, you're just getting leads, right? You're hoping that these leads qualify. But when you get 18 screen fails in a row, which is what happened with us, we just screened our 19th, Andrew, and I think she's going to qualify. She's got everything good to go. So I think we're okay with that study, and then IRB will approve it, and then we're gonna have you guys do the campaign. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do branding, a lot of work to do advertising, and this has so far nothing to do with what a study coordinator's day-to-day job is. And most of these people running these campaigns are going to be the coordinators. So,
and that's the thing is, even from my perspective of being a coordinator, I know for a fact there was not enough time in the day for me, just from back then, every daily task I had to do, right? Data entry, answering queries, answering, I can't even remember the names anymore. Answering queries, answering questions from the monitor, deviation, stuff like that. It's a lot of going back and forth, and that's what's really important for a coordinator to do. Right?
Yeah, which coordinator is going to have time to come up with a blog post, 500 words, here's top 5 things you should do if you have ulcerative colitis. Nobody has time for that. Nobody wants to do that. And this is where we kind of can segue, and hello to everyone that stayed this long who doesn't own a site or work at a site but wants to get in the industry. If you go approach sites right now, okay, and you tell them, hey, I just want to intern, they're probably going to say no thanks. But if you approach the same sites right now and tell them, hey, do you have a Facebook page? No? Well, I'll help you make one. And then I'll help manage it. I'll write blog posts every day. I'll pull out my phone and we can do an interview, whenever you have time. That will be my role here. I don't want anything in return. I just want some experience in clinical research. I want to get my start. I guarantee that's a much better strategy than just going to different sites and asking them to intern. You're showing the sites that you can do something.
The biggest thing with that is just you're providing value, right? You're providing the site value. You're giving them something. They're giving you back something in return. It's the rule of reciprocity. If you just go to a site and you're like, hey, can I get an internship? You're asking for a take.
Yeah.
So, if you're willing to give somebody something, right, you understand that no matter what, even if it's an internship, you got to do something. So you might as well start with, hey, I'm going to do this for you, and in turn, or I guess in turn, I would like to be an intern for
Yeah.
your research site.
Yeah, pun intended. No pun intended, but it's very good. Yeah, it's amazing because I'll tell people to use this strategy, and some do. Very few do, but there's no surprise they get successful results. The ones
Yeah,
that don't always come back with an excuse. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't know how to do that. I don't know how to post. And then I look at their Instagram, and all it is posts, and they're typing like nonsense. And it's like, why can't you do this for the site too?
yeah,
I mean, you could post a picture of a food. You could shoot if the site doesn't even have a Facebook page. You can even do a selfie of all the staff with like a bio of who they are, what they're doing today. That's better than nothing, right? So you're creating content, providing value. Anyone can do this. Anyone who uses social media can do this,
yeah,
and that's
absolutely,
just about everybody.
absolutely. And one even really simple idea I'll give to any research site or site owner or business owner, right, is try your own Facebook ad and really just focus on what we just said, right? Giving them something before you take something. So like it could be something as simple as, for this weekend only, we're doing free skin exams, or we're going to stay open on the weekend. We're going to be available from these hours to these hours. We're going to do free skin exams, right? And what does that do? You don't have to get that IRB approved, number one, but it gives you the opportunity to get people into your door and actually review their skin. And say if they have, eczema or a skin condition that takes over more than 10% of the body surface area, then right then and there you can not only offer them the golden standard treatment of what you think, but let them know like, hey, we also have a clinical trial that you might be interested in or you might qualify for, and that opens a door for you to start a conversation with that person. And the biggest thing is you eliminate that barrier, right, of getting that person into your door. That's the biggest thing is how do we get this person from the internet into our actual practice?
Yes.
And by eliminating those barriers, right, and maybe not even posting about the clinical trial right away, it allows you to get them in because you're giving them something, and in return, they're not expecting to, owe you something, right? They're not thinking they're going to go into the practice, they're going to get poked and prodded. Obviously for a lot of clinical trials, we know that's not how it is, but for the standard person that doesn't know a clinical trial or the process or what the trial entails, it can be a little bit intimidating. So doing something as simple as that could be a great way to get somebody into your door today, just to see if, hey, maybe we can convert them into a patient of our general practice, or maybe we'll even find somebody that will be eligible or potentially qualified for the trial.
What a great icebreaker to do that. And that's branding, right? So you're letting them know, you're letting this stranger know, hey, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And then slowly they start getting educated about all the services you guys offer. I mean, chances are these sites are doing more than one study. Chances are they even have a private practice, like you mentioned. I'm glad you brought up IRB, okay, because branding does not require IRB,
Yeah.
but advertising does. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why we haven't even started. We've been working with you for like 3 months, maybe 4 now, and we haven't even started because the IRB is taking a long time to
Yeah.
review the ad. First is the sponsor has to review it, then it's the IRB, and then finally Facebook's going to have to review it. So
Exactly.
branding, you don't need any IRB ads, okay? It's just Facebook. Facebook is going to look for it if you're boosting it. If you're just posting it, you don't need anything, okay? Now, this is where it gets tricky. So, what do you do, Andrew? I'm sure sites come to you all the time, and they say, hey, the sponsor hasn't provided anything that's IRB approved, but they said we can create something. So how do they, because that's where people get stuck. Then they have other things to do, so they don't deal, who wants to make a image? I mean, people,
Yeah.
how would a coordinator, they don't even know how to do that. So what's some advice at this point here?
So some advice I have on this, and it's kind of an interesting question because you're going to go to the same place to get the same materials, right? What we started doing at the beginning was just using, very generic stock imagery of actual people. And it works for a little bit, but what happens is in that perspective of branding, when everybody, if you have multiple research sites, right, or multiple practices rather, say they're a skin practice, dermatology practice, there's going to be a lot of dermatology practices probably using the same imagery in your area. So it really comes down to what type of different imagery can we use to differentiate ourselves from all these other people using the same imagery. And it could be something as simple as having a specific color, right, as your background, and you only use that color on all your posts. And people know that if they see a blue screen, that's for this site, right? If they see a blue background, it's this site. One of the things that we're really in love with right now is vector imagery. And what vector imagery is, it's more an, I wouldn't say animated, cartoonish, but it's more friendly, right? It's not necessarily a real person. It's an image of like a caricature, if you will. And one place that we kind of got this idea from was Oscar Health. They're a healthcare company here in California, and if you've ever seen any of their branding, it's all these kind of caricatures. It's people, but it's not actually people. They're these little images of people that, you know, they're healthcare professionals, or they're going to work, or, you know, it can seem a little bit silly, but it really works. And it really helps you kind of differentiate yourselves from the other people. Because one thing I see a lot of sites doing is just Googling an image, right, and taking the first 3 or first 4. Well, the real thing comes down to how many other people do you think are doing that, right? You're probably not the first person that's going to go and search for eczema and take the first 4 or 5 images that they see.
Even less so if they're doing it the right way, which is like the royalty-free imaging, because you can't just do Google image search and copy and paste, although people are doing that. But if you're using like those free sites, like royalty-free, then you're going to get even less of a pool of images for that word. So I understand what you're saying. How would someone do the vectoring? Can they do that on their own?
Go to Shutterstock.com, right?
Okay.
Shutterstock.com is a great place where you can even get, you know, just some of that stock photography that we were talking about that maybe a lot of research sites may use. But then there's a selection where it says, instead of like all images, there's one that says vector. And you can select that, and it'll show you like all these kind of different imageries and more playful and fun type of stuff you can do for your disease or condition. What's really great is that there's an unlimited amount of artists, right? Like actual artists creating these images, because they're not just made on, you know, just like a canvas or a paint. They're made on like Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. So there's a lot of things that can be played around with even on your end, right? Like you can go in, we can take a vector image and we can totally delete aspects of it, or we can add aspects of it. And that's something that's really, really cool. We can change the color of the background. We have a lot of opportunity to really play with the image. Whereas with like a regular Shutterstock photo that's of a person, let's say they did it on a pink backdrop, it becomes a lot more difficult to delete the pink backdrop but keep the person without taking out a part of their arm by accident. You know, but with this vector imagery, you can really play around with it and adjust things accordingly to your own branding, right?
How do you guys work, really cool. As we wrap up here? So how do you guys work? Is it more like full service, or are the sites supposed to come to you with, obviously they need a study, but
yeah,
do they need to have the creative for it, or do they just come to you with their need and say, hey Andrew, this is what we need, here we go, I'm coming to you because you're the professional?
So we like to provide a full service experience. We, you know, for people that are hiring us to help them with their advertising for their clinical trials, we don't want you guys to have to worry about anything. We want you to only have to focus on what you need to do on your day-to-day tasks, because obviously you guys are super busy. And the last thing we want you to do is go ahead and learn how to use Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator to create a piece of imagery, right? So what we do for our sites is we create all the imagery for them. We use a lot of imagery that we've known and we've tested, and we've seen it worked for this site. That's one of the cool things is we're not only just guessing like, all right, like this site's new, we should use this. We're taking information and data that from our other research sites that have done this. So if we're running 6 eczema trials, right, and you're in an eczema trial, we're not going to just start fresh. We already have a whole pool of data, which images work the best, which copy works the best. So we do a whole A to Z kind of package in terms of content creation when it comes to the imagery, copy, anything that, you know, as far as the website, we'll create a landing page for you, which is, you know, where the person is going to land after they click on their ad. You know, the submission process, we take care of all of that. And like I told you, we're adding integrations to help our sites get on calls with people easier. And, you know, we can really tailor the experience to any research site, right? One thing that, you know, we're trying to look more into is a friendly kind of pre-screening questionnaire. We're trying to do that for like sites like yours, right? We didn't have enough time to figure it out, unfortunately. But we can do a pre-screening questionnaire where you can ask some pre-screening questions that, if you have, say a sponsor that's like, hey, this is it. If it doesn't happen, you're kind of, you kind of have that shot to pre-screen the person beforehand, right? So you can see if they're qualified. And one of the reasons I think that's so important for research sites, and we tailor it to research sites, is just because you don't want to be calling, right, 300 people a day. Like on average, I would say, depending on the study, we're getting our research sites anywhere between 20 to 30 leads a month. And what it can become is, if we're really putting a lot more money into it, that 20 or 30 can become 50 or 60. And the last thing we really want you guys to be stressing about or focusing on is calling all these people that may not be eligible, right? So there's different things that we can tailor for our sites, and we can really provide a very customized experience for them, which is really, really cool.
And what is the pricing model? How does that work?
So the pricing model kind of depends on what you're looking for. Generally, for research sites that are just trying to do very simple lead conversion, somebody will click on the ad, they'll go on a landing page, and then from there, they'll just submit their information. We'll charge around $700 a month for a monthly management fee on our part, and that's for us to set everything up, to manage the Facebook ads, to make sure the website's always up and running, to make sure everything's working smooth. Because with Facebook ads, it's interesting. You can start and you can put in, say you want to do like $350 for that week. But if you don't have anyone managing that, and you have, say, 3 or 4 different ads running at a time, you might be having one ad that's performing amazing, but you're still wasting money on the other 4.
That's right.
So we're really going in and we're looking at different data points to determine, all right, which ad should we turn off today? Which ad, should we put more money into? And it's not always about just the cost per lead. It's a lot more than that. You got to look at click-through rate. How many people are actually clicking on your ad and going through to your landing page? Mm-hmm. You got to look at the engagement. There's 3 sections within Facebook. You have a campaign level, ad set level, and the ad level. And on the ad level, it'll even show you how well that your ad is performing against other people advertising in this space, right? And if you're in that like below average threshold, what that means is Facebook's going to show your advertisement less to that audience because it's not performing as well. They're seeing that this ad doesn't really resonate with this audience, and we're kind of just putting junk in front of them. Yeah. And once again, it becomes that game with Facebook and Instagram of they're only trying to put out information or put out content to their users to have a friendly and good user experience. Because at the end of the day, they want to keep people on their platform as long as possible. And in order to do that, they have to kind of filter and make sure that what they're being shown is appropriate, is valuable, is of substance. That's right. If you're running ads that aren't of substance and you're just continually doing that, it's just not going to work.
This is Facebook, where you separate.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no. This was what I was going to say. This is actually where you separate like the average strategies, which is probably what I was doing on my own. Maybe a little better than average, but more or less average, versus the professional results. Because oftentimes, and it's not intuitive. Like the ad I thought for sure would perform better when we would do split tests. It would rarely be the good one, right? That's subjective, but the data Facebook shows you is objective data. So you have to have professionals who do this every day, because Andrew's doing this, I don't know on how many different accounts. You're doing it probably on one. So at the end of the day, they're going to have better data than you. They're going to know what works better than you. Bottom line, this is why we use Andrew, because I know how to do it. I know enough to be dangerous, but it's not going to be as good as it can be.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things we like to do for our research sites is we really like to make sure that we're taking care of them. We really manage it. We set a dedicated person to manage your account. So we're not having like 3 or 4 people view it. We put a dedicated person on the account to make sure that they're really the ones that understand it on a day-to-day basis. So it's not like Nick's coming in one day And then the next day we got Ross coming in, and he's looking at, an ad set that Nick was looking at a week ago, and maybe Nick was looking at something for this ad that might not be performing well, but then we have this other person that's, oh, it's not performing well, let me turn it off. We really dedicate one person to it to make sure that we're implementing the best strategies and we're really utilizing the research site's budget as wisely as possible. And that's really what it comes down to. Is I always encourage people to test out Facebook, get a feel for it. There's definitely room for everyone to have success. It just comes down to what's that opportunity cost for your research site, right? Should you be the one, who's running these ads, or should you be the one that's conducting the research? And what it really comes down to, once again, is what you mentioned. It's you do have a limited budget, but at the end of the day, it is the pharmaceutical company's budget, and they are giving it to you for you to utilize resources outside of your own space. And once again, there's nothing wrong with you trying to do it. It's just that opportunity cost of what is my time really worth.
Right. And what kind of business are we building?
Exactly.
Is it a research business or a digital marketing business? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Although branding, I think everyone should do. I don't think you should outsource
100%.
that. That's my thesis. But advertising, you got to go to professionals for that, or play around with it yourself for a little bit. Andrew,
Yeah.
what's your email again? I will put it in the show notes, and also the website I'll put.
Yeah, absolutely. So my email is astevens, STEPHENS, at apolloresearchgroup.com. And then my website that you can just go to directly if you want to contact us, if that's easier, is just apolloresearchgroup.com.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It was very informative. Hopefully people out there, whether you're at a site or you're not, as you've heard, take some action and do something about it today in this new decade. What a great way to start off the new decade, by doing something good and valuable.
I agree.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening, and we'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.